Hi everyone, it's Miss Mortimer here with your maths videos for this week. This is the video for Primary 6A, Primary 6b and Primary 6-7. And as you can see from my board here, this week we are going to be learning about written multiplication. And we have got an icon for this week because we are learning to be able to say that I can multiply using written methods. So previously we have been working on doing mental multiplication, which has involved figuring out answers, really aiming without writing anything down, or using methods that can help us do the calculations mentally, a lot of times table work. But now we are going on to do written multiplication, which, as you can see some examples here, are our lovely chimney sums that we like to call them, or column methods, where we are writing out sums and figuring out the answer in smaller steps. And this allows us to tackle larger numbers in smaller chunks as well. So we'll get into our videos and see what we're doing today. So first of all, when doing written multiplication, you really need to have some level of confidence with your times tables, because that is exactly what we're going to be using to do this. Now you can get a copy of the times tables or use a multiplication square. If you Google a multiplication square, you'll get lots of examples that come up, or just ask your teachers if you're struggling to find one, and I'm sure we will be able to accommodate you with an example of one. But you do need to have some knowledge of times tables or access to times tables to be able to undertake the written multiplication. Otherwise, you may find you are getting yourself confused. So we're going to start with a very basic written multiplication sum, and we're going to stick to quite small numbers just to show you exactly how we do it, and then we're going to show how it might get a little bit more complicated as we go on. So let's stick with, let's do 35 times 3. Okay, now I've set, I'm not going to add a bottom line there, you'll maybe see. No, we can't add a bottom line there. I've set this up very similar to the addition sums we did a few weeks ago, because, well, in this instance, we are timesing by one digit. That one digit does need to go on the bottom. So whether you're doing 275 times 4 or 3,295 times 8, the smaller digit, single digit, goes on the bottom. And I would always stick to, in general, the smaller number going on the bottom for times tables, if there is a smaller number, as you'll come to see when we get on to trickier examples. So we have 35 times 3, and I'm going to change pen colour just to break this up a little bit further. As you can see, we're timesing by 3, so you can guess we're going to be using a lot of our 3 times tables. So this is the part now where you might want to have a copy of your 3 times table, or look over it just to practice, or maybe you're already feeling confident, in which case you're probably okay to get going. So we start with, in this case we have tens and units. As mentioned before, we do obviously go smaller than units to tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and that would work the same, but we always start with the smallest value, which is the closest to the right hand side. Similar to addition, if you do not do that and you start with the number on the left hand side, you may find you come into some problems. So 5 times 3 is 15. Now, similar to addition, because the number is 2 digits, 15, 1, 5, we have to carry the 1 underneath. And that actually adds something a little bit tricky maybe, but usually pupils are quite quick to grasp what we do with this 1 here. And most of you, I'm sure, are watching and are saying, this is really obvious, this is really easy. Feel free to do these sums along with me, and you can see if you beat me with getting the answer, and see if you get the same answer as me. So yes, carrying on, we've done our units. 5 times 3 is 15. We leave that just now. We go on to the next one. 3 times 3. We know 3 times 3 is 9, and we would be writing 9 here. However, before we write our 9, we have a 1 to add on, a 110 to add on to this answer. So we do a little bit of adding. So 3 times 3 was 9, add 1 is 10. So the answer is 105. I'm just going to do another example here that doesn't involve carrying, and this is maybe a more straightforward example if that confused you a little bit. But for those that are understanding, we will go through it quite quickly. So this time we have 12 times 4. This sum shouldn't have any carrying here. So it just shows you the basic straight up method. We do the units first, same as last time. 2 times 4, which is 8. And then we're doing 1 times 4, which is 4. So no carrying that time. Straightforward. We put the 2 times 4 as 8, answer there, and the 1 times 4 is 4, answer there. Similar with addition written methods, obviously the bigger numbers you get, the trickier the sum will get, but as long as we're times them by 1 digit, the method doesn't change. So let's do a number with 3 digits this time. We will do 534 times 6. And obviously our sum's gotten a little bit bigger, but it shouldn't be that much trickier. And we use the same method we did in the previous 2 examples as well. So this time we have hundreds, tens, and units, and we're still going to stick with our smallest value, the units, and start with that. I'm just changing my pen color. Hopefully this one shows up. So 4 times 6 is, again, we're doing our 6 times table, so you might want to have a check on that or have it handy. 4 times 6 is 24. So 20 is the tens number, 4 is the units. You always write the units number in here. That is the same as what we did for addition, but I have seen some people get confused for some reason because it's 24. But it should still, how I've explained before, if you kind of look at it straight down, you can still read 24. It still looks like 24. You don't muddle them up. So 4 is the units. That number always goes in. The 2 goes underneath. And actually, this is a slight difference from addition, because usually in addition we would only have carry 1. You wouldn't really get numbers larger than 1 that you're carrying, especially when you're just adding 2 numbers. So you might have more numbers to carry in this case. So just to recap, we have done 4 times 6, which is 24. We leave that just now. We move on to our next one. 3 times 6. 3 times 6 is 18. Now, it might be useful to maybe write this down just so we don't forget if you're struggling with the carrying. So we've got 3 times 6 is 18. In fact, we could write the whole sum down. 4 times 6 is 24. 3 times 6 is 18, but we need to add on 2. So 18 plus 2 equals 20. So this time we are doing 20, and the 0 is the unit, so that goes in, and the 2 gets carried. Just to clarify, 3 times 6, which was 18, and we have the 2 at the bottom. 18 plus 2 is 20. And we have got one sum left to do, which is 5 times 6. I'll keep writing them down here. It's a good idea to just make sure you're not losing track of everything. So 5 times 6 is 30. But again, we have 2 to add. So 5 times 6 is 30 plus 2, which equals 32. So our final answer goes in there. So 534 times 6 equals 3,204. This part I've written down here is just for pupils maybe struggling to keep track of the sum, maybe getting a bit confused with their carrying. they're adding on the carrying here in circles, or you can do it in different colours. This is not necessary. If you're happy enough doing the sum, you don't have to write this out, but for anyone struggling, it might be an idea to break it up into smaller chunks. So yeah, just to clarify, 4 times 6, 24. 3 times 6 was 18, plus the 2 underneath, which made 20. 5 times 6 was 30, plus the 2 underneath, which is 32. And overall, we have 3,204. I have done a larger sum here. Again, we're timesing by a single digit, so it is using the exact same method. I am going to work through this one a little bit quicker, but you should see that I'm using the same method. And again, you could write down the steps as you go. So 6 times 7 is 42. The 2 goes there, the 4 goes underneath. Move on to the next one. 9 times 7 is 63, but we add the 4, so 63 add 4 is 67. 3 times 7 is 21, but we add the 6, so 21 add 6 is 27. We could actually add our comma here. 7 times 7 is 49, add 2, which is 51. And 1 times 7 would be 7, plus 5, which is 12. So our answer overall is 121,772. And if you manage to keep up, you should have seen we used the exact same method, working through each sum at a time and adding on our carrying. Now, for people maybe having a go at extra hot this week, or for those of you that are following on with everything I've said so far and found it pretty straightforward, you will definitely have to consider having a go at multiplying by 2 digits, which is a little bit more complicated, but certainly not impossible. Certainly something we do a lot in school, so you should still have a go at doing this at home. Even if you're not confident enough to go ahead with extra hot work this week, then please make sure you watch and see what I'm doing just now, because it might show you how you would go about taking a question under in this way. And it is straightforward once you get the hang of it, but it might take a few tries of you getting the hang of it. So we are multiplying by 2 digits. So let's just do 2 digits by 2 digits. We'll do 42 times 36. And this time I'm going to leave my sum blank. Now there are 3 different steps to solving this, and step 1 is that we almost ignore the 3, that doesn't exist, and we can see it kind of looks like the sums we've been doing so far. If we got rid of the 3, we're just doing 42 times 6, and that is step 1. So step 1 is pretty straightforward. So 2 times 6, we could add a line in, but I'm not going to. 2 times 6 is 12. We still carry our 1. This is when it probably becomes extra important for you to make sure your sums are well spaced out and nice and neat, because it might become confusing. I would try and make sure your carrying numbers are a lot smaller than your sum numbers, we'll call them, the actual numbers that you want for your final answer, because it will get a little bit confusing if you've got lots of numbers going on. So try and make sure the numbers you're carrying are almost mini versions. So sorry, just to recap, we did 2 times 6, which was 12, 4 times 6, which was 24, and then we add our 1, 25. So if you kept up with everything we've done so far, this should be pretty straightforward. We've done 42 times 6, and in fact, I'm going to write that there. This was 42 times 6, just so we know what we're doing. Now, in fact, we will change colour of pen. This time, on to step 2, we can't ignore our 3. We need to put our 3 back in. And this time, we ignore our 6, and we do 42 times, now it would be 30, because this is 3 tens. So 42 times 30. Okay. Now, times them by 30 is not exactly straightforward. So we can use a method where we add a 0. So if we add a 0 into our units column, we can actually change this to 42 times 3. Now this is a trick we can use to answer the question. So as I said, this is a trick to make the question easier because as you can see now, we are just doing the same as step 1. We've added the 0, so we don't need to times by 30 anymore because adding a 0 is almost a trick to times by 10. So step 2 is add a 0 and then times by the tens digit. So this time we're just timesing by 3. Apart from our answers will be one column moved up, and you'll see in just a moment. So 2 times 3 is 6. And then 4 times 3, going to be a bit of a squeeze, is 12. And that is the answer to step 2. And to finish us off, the answer to what we do for step 3 is we add our two sums. So we change this, two answers here. We don't need to do this bit, but I'm showing you. We take the two answers from step 1 and step 2 and we add them together like an addition sum. And although I've squished mine here, I think I'm okay, but this is where it's important to make sure your columns are nice and lined up, because if they're not, then it can be very confusing. And as you can see, if I didn't do a small one here, that might also cause confusion. So we do 2 plus 0, which is 2, 5 plus 6, which is 11, carry the 1, 2 plus 2, which is 4, add 1, which is 5, and then we just have our 1, add nothing else here. So the answer to 42 times 36 is 1,512. We are going to do one more example of the same sum, apart from we'll maybe do 3 digits times 2 digits, just to show you the steps again. So for we'll get our sum, 724 times, let's do 53. Okay, so step 1, let's change the pen. Step 1 is we ignore the tens digit, the 5, and we just do 724 times 3. And we'll write that here, 724 times 3. So 4 times 3, remember you can easily cross it out. 4 times 3 is 12. 2 times 3 is 6, add 1, which is 7. 7 times 3 is 21. On to step 2. Step 2, this time we ignore the 3 and we're doing 724 times 50. So do a wee line there, 724 times 50. Now remember, we have an extra trick here. To save timesing by 50, we can add a 0, which means we can ignore this 0, and we're doing 724 times by 5. So this time we're doing the sum, times by 5, we can ignore the 3. 5 times 4 is 20. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 2 is 12. Making sure our answers are nice and lined up because we know step 3 is coming. And 7 times 5 is 35 plus 1, which would be 36. And then on to step 3, getting ahead of myself there, where we are adding for our final answer. 2 plus 0 is 2, 7 plus 0 is 7, 1 plus 2 is 3, 2 plus 6 is 8, and 3 plus nothing else is 3. So our answer to 724 times 53 was 38,372. And you can go on to challenge yourself to do this method with larger sums. You could actually practice timesing by 3 digits. You would just need to add an extra step where you would add 2 zeros. but that's going a bit beyond what the work we're giving you this week.
So we'll take a look at the tasks you have today. For people undertaking mild work, these are the sums you will be completing. You are doing 3-digit numbers timesing by a single digit number, and you are timesing by 3, 2 and 4 and 5 for this whole sheet today, using the methods we discussed previously in the video. For spicy work, it is very similar, but you are also going to be doing some timesing by 6. So slightly higher answers there. Again, 3-digit numbers timesing by a single digit today, but spicy will get trickier as we go through the week. And extra hot, you are timesing by our 2 digits, as I have just shown you using the method, and you can actually see if you're using the worksheets, they've already printed out the squares and the lines to make sure your sums are nice and clear. But as always, please get in touch with your teachers if you have any further questions or you're not sure. Remember, you have the daily drop-in sessions that you can help ask for your teachers for help or to go over an instruction if there's anything you need.
Thank you everyone for your hard work this week. As always, please just get in touch with your teachers if you have any questions about your learning on Teams. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.